What's up, guys? How we doing? So today's video, a little different than normal. I want to get into some of the reasons and some of the ways that they control the industry and some of the things that the promoters do and why they do it. And it has to do with performance enhancing drugs or supplements, because there's not a real difference. First, I want to talk about Nano-Xtreme. Nano-Xtreme is the best pain cream that I've ever used. There's so many of you guys that have tried it. Head over to Nano-Xtreme, use code COOKSY and get free shipping. Complete Racing Solutions. Head over there, check out Coach Rob's programs. He's got them specifically designed for youth training camps, and that's something very crucial with training, is getting these youth riders and understanding the physiology of a youth versus an adult. A lot of these trainers don't have any idea. Head over to CompleteRacingSolutions.com. Check out Ride Strapped, best goggles, glasses, shirts, just a really cool company that I'm very honored to be associated with. So check out RideStrap.com. If you're shipping anything, use Precision Transport. It's pretransport.com, best shipping company out there. And if you need some new gear, hit up Alias MX. Alias MX is making a comeback, and they got some really cool styles over there. They got Justin Starling wearing it this year, and look for big moves from Alias in the next couple of years.
You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
There's been some interesting developments in performance enhancing drugs in the last 15, 20 years. What I want to point out is they're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. According to some of the study that I did, 80% of cyclists, that's the bicycle Lance Armstrong guys, 80% of those guys use performance enhancing drugs. The key word there is drugs. They're not really drugs. They're supplements. They're different types of supplements. Some who've been made illegal, they're not called supplements, they're called drugs. And if they're legal, then they just call them supplements. We're talking amino acids, proteins, and different types of stuff that are healthy for athletes. Then there's the IV bags and all the different things that riders need to do. Our riders in Supercross are asked to do 31 rounds, and they run them to the ground. So of course they need these supplements. And the secret that nobody talks about is they all do it. They all do it. And then people will say, oh, well, it costs too much money. Not really, not really. This isn't like the 1990s when this stuff was cutting edge and you had to pay lots and lots of money to get the right stuff. Nowadays, you can get the EPO or EPO HGH cocktail, which that's the preferred one. The one that really helps for our sport is EPO and the HGH combination. And then people will say, oh, well, they test for this stuff. Just so you know, the testing is way, way, way behind the actual supplements. And this is kind of the unwritten secret. Everyone knows all cyclists use supplements. And I want to call them supplements because they should be allowed. These athletes need them to perform. They're not dangerous. There are a lot of supplements that guys, when they end their careers and they're no longer in the testing pool, they use this stuff out in the open and tell you, hey, this is what helps keep me young. This is what makes me feel good. Why in the heck are we hiding it from the guys who are the best athletes on the world? It doesn't make sense. But when you look at it a little bit further into it, a lot of the fake testing that is done in the sport of Supercross and Motocross, it's done for appearances only. The dirty little secret is all these promoters and teams and team managers, they all understand that their riders are probably using some stuff. It's not a coincidence that our guys train with a lot of these bicycle riders, and the bicycle riders are the dirtiest out there besides professional bodybuilders. And the thing about cyclists is what they need to perform and what they use works perfectly for Supercross and Motocross. And now if you go use PEDs or the stuff that they're using, if you get on a good EPO cycle with HGH, you are not going to be a champion. What this does is it adds a little bit extra. If you can practice an extra day during the week, if you can recover a little bit. And then I hear people say, well, why would they do it? There's going to cause problems later in life. Well, if you use it wrong, it absolutely could. It can have a large heart. There can be a lot of negative side effects to these supplements. And when these guys are forced to go black market, and when these guys take unnecessary risks by getting it from people in the corner or their buddy's buddy and not an actual doctor who's running the numbers and testing the stuff. Like Lance Armstrong had that doctor, Ferrari. Ferrari ran all the numbers and made sure he was optimal. Now, you get some guy that's just buying it off the street corner and tells you, you use this much. They don't know what's in your system. They are shooting blind. Yeah, that can be a little bit dangerous. And now I don't have any problems with anyone who uses these supplements. I 100% believe if you took all the riders inside the top 10, anyone who's making any sort of money and on a factory team, chances are they're using this stuff. And the reason they don't get caught is EPO and HGH. If you don't get the guy right after they took it, chances are you're not going to catch them. Lance Armstrong never actually failed a test. He was tested just so much. I think he was tested something like 500 separate times. He never was positive. The only thing they ever got him for was cortisol, which is a cortisone steroid that helps with pain and helps these guys get through the longer days. Yes, it's illegal, but it's not looked down on like EPO and some of the other drugs that really do add a significant amount of performance and endurance to these guys. Now, the problem with this is it's black market. And then you get these guys who, when you go to the training facilities, everybody knows this goes on. Nobody talks about it. Everybody denies it. People hide it from their roommates, hide it from their friends. Some parents don't even know the kids are using it. It's crazy how this actually happens in our sport. I have a serious problem with any of these training facilities who are advising any of these kids who have not fully developed, and they have them using these types of drugs. And I call them drugs because they're actually supplements, but they're supplements designed for grown human beings, not people who are developing their endocrine system, their hormones, and all the things that make you an adult. It's not much different than giving some kid going through a, changing their sex from a boy to a girl to a boy. We freak out and say, oh my God, how could anyone do that? Yet at a lot of these training facilities, they are giving these types of hormones and supplements to kids who are either going through puberty, just been through puberty. That is dangerous and that needs to stop. And I think if the stigma around these supplements would be removed and we just accept that these guys are going to do them, because these guys are professional racers. They take risks every single time they hit the track. They absolutely could change their life, end their life. Look how many professional racers end up in wheelchairs. It's scary. You take that into consideration, you've got risk takers that are super competitive. Yeah, they're going to take any advantage they can get. That's what racers do. They push the limits of everything. But what has happened with this whole system is the promoters, Feld, MX Sports, Davey Coombs in particular, they know this and they kind of cover for these guys. You look at what Davey Coombs did for James Stewart when he had the IV bags at Minnesota. Everybody knew it. It was an unkept secret. This one got out. Davey covered for him. So once Davey does that, now James Stewart owes him because nobody wants to be known as a cheater. It really does ruin your reputation and it can tarnish your earning potential after your career because nobody wants to be associated with a guy that didn't do it right. Meanwhile, a lot of fans, a lot of you guys, and I'm probably going to get a lot in the comments, are going to say, oh, you're crazy. This guy didn't do it. I spoke with somebody next to a high level rider that I know for a fact is doing this stuff. And they said, no, he's not. He's not doing anything. There's no way. There's no way he would do it. He wouldn't risk that. He's a good person. That stigma right there is why nobody will talk about it and why the promoters, Davey Coombs in particular, have a specific leverage on these guys. Now they know Davey's, if you ever go against Davey and say, hey, riders, I want to take a rider stance, they use these types of things to destroy you. Davey Coombs has been on record. He threatened Guy Cooper. He told Guy Cooper, I can use the power of the pen to destroy you if you go against me. If he's willing to do that to a legend of the sport, what do you think he's doing to these guys now? Of course. And they don't go up. He doesn't go up and directly threaten them. But they make it, like Grant Langston said, they make it very clear what you should or shouldn't say and what you should or shouldn't do. This keeps riders from speaking up about safety issues. This keeps riders from speaking up about pay, this and all the different things that I've been complaining about. When they have leverage over these guys, whether it be their swinging lifestyles or the fact that, they're using performance enhancing drugs, at any moment, they could come out and essentially destroy these guys. How do you fix it? You stop making it illegal. You let them do whatever they want. Let them do it with a doctor's note. Let them get their numbers where they need to be. And I know a lot of people don't want this, but they're doing it anyway. If guys don't have to hide this and everybody knows that everybody else is on it, which they do already. Check out this pharmacy here. There's a few guys right now who are going to crap their pants. This pharmacy ships directly to multiple top pros. And they're not shipping vitamins. They're shipping the good stuff. And these guys that get their stuff from here they're gonna crap their pants and go, oh my gosh. We shouldn't destroy them for this. And that's my whole point on this is if you take away the stigma on supplements, because that's what these are, EPO is something that shouldn't be used by a regular person, but used by athletes required to race 31 weeks. These guys should be allowed to use whatever supplements they need. And then we're going to see the best riders out there. We're going to see the guys who work the hardest, and they're all going to be on a level playing field. Now, people say, oh, well, then only the top guys are going to win because they're the only ones that can afford it. Well, right now, it's about, I found a program that you could get on. It's EPO and HGH for $1,500. They're on every corner. Everybody can get it now. This is not 1990 when it was this whole, you had to go through a black market and you were paying $10,000, $15,000 a month to get this exact protocol. Now it's become so regular that almost anyone can do it. But I think it needs to be out in the open. I think it needs to be talked about. It needs to be understood. This is what these athletes do. I will promise you this. Take a look at any top motocrosser, and if they train with guys in the cycling world, you can go ahead and just assume they're doing it. I can look at the guys when they come off the track and tell you who's on what, and I'm probably pretty damn accurate. But these promoters keep telling the fairy tale. Oh, there's testing. These guys are clean. They want the narrative out there that our guys are not. They're just these incredible superhuman athletes, which they are. They absolutely are. I could do all the HGH and EPO I wanted. I will never be a top guy. That is a misnomer. But if you look at the top guys, I can tell you they're all doing it. They all know the other guy's doing it. In the 1990s, EPO and HGH, that whole cocktail they got, hit a perfect formula where, Lance Armstrong was the first to really take advantage of it. These guys do this, and then our guys started experimenting with it. The guys that do it nowadays, they're on a level playing field because the guys they're going against, they're all doing it. There's no way to stop it. There's just not. The best athletes in the Olympics, the UFC, they have all figured out how to get around this testing process. Of the cheaters, and that's a loose term because I don't really think it's cheating, but in sports, USADA and WADA are the highest levels of testing, the most cutting edge. They catch between 1% and 3% of the cheaters. That is insane that they only catch that many. But like I said, you got cycling. The estimate that I saw was 80%. I would say anyone in the top 20 in cycling has or is using performance-enhancing drugs. And EPO, you say, oh, well, I got tested. Well, you can take that test 3 days after injecting, and you still get the benefits of EPO for weeks afterwards. So yeah, you can be clean for a while, but that's the carrot that the promoters put out there. Oh, well, we know. And Davey with his whole media empire, this is how they control. Because I always wonder, how the heck do these teams and riders not stand up when, they're about to sign a $200 million a year TV contract and these guys are getting nothing? It's because whoever speaks up will be destroyed. And these are the types of things they use to destroy these athletes, to ruin their reputation. So I hate to be the one to tell you guys that Santa Claus isn't real, but these riders are not clean. And like I said, I don't look down on any of them. They are still on somewhat of a level playing field because they're all doing it. There's probably a couple guys that aren't, and they're kind of noticeable and it's hard. But once you get to that higher level, it's almost impossible. And you say, oh, well, they don't help that much. They don't help you ride. No, they don't, but they help you practice. You get extra days in practice. You feel better during the race. And I could argue that it's actually safer for these guys to use performance-enhancing supplements because they're out there risking their life. These tracks are dangerous. Do you want a guy out there exhausted, hitting a gigantic triple in front of another guy? Their lives could change in an instant. If you can take that guy, add a little bit of focus, and not make him tired, the danger factor goes down considerably. Like I said, these guys are already doing it. All I want is just to stop with the stigma and let these guys use whatever they need to use. With that said, I would like to see the training facilities acknowledging this is not for kids. If you want to go on a program, make sure you're grown. Stop giving it to these children. Now that pisses me off, and I know there's a lot of that going on. Do not give any of these performance-enhancing drugs to anyone who's not fully developed. You will cause major problems. I know of a former pro who has an enlarged heart and enlarged lungs because they did it wrong or did it too early. Those are real dangers, especially when you're getting at black market. Let them go to the proper doctors. Let them go to the guys who understand how to do it the right way. We are still going to see the same guys win, the same champions. It's not going to change it very much. But I can tell you guys, this is 100% a way that Feld, MX Sports, that's how they keep the riders quiet. That's how they keep riders from exposing the dirty deeds of the promoters, because they know if they do, they will be destroyed. And speaking of the dirty deeds of the promoters, I just looked into the AMA again, and I keep watching, trying to figure out how a nonprofit organization owned by the members in 2007 was at an all-time high, and all of a sudden they sold it to a for-profit company, but it's a non-profit business. That sale was 100% illegal, and it is about to be unwound. The way this thing's set up, it's gangster-like. It's gangster-like the way that Rob Dingman, Davey Coombs, who was on the board of the AMA just a couple years prior to this whole takeover of the sport. They have stolen the sport. I'll get into more detail on that later, but they have 100% stolen the sport. They have sold it illegally. There's so many illegal kickbacks coming from the racing organizations back to Dingman and people at the AMA. It is disgusting. But anyway, guys, I don't know. I'm on a kick. I just watched a few Lance Armstrong documentaries again. I watched Icarus, and I was just thinking about this in our sport and how it changes things and how I was trying to find reasons that our guys don't speak up. A lot of it is fear of being outed for things that they are doing, that everyone is doing, that the promoters know about, that they look the other way. Davey Coombs, like I said, he's proven he did this. He covered for James Stewart at Millville. There was an IV ready to go. He had a nurse show up with IV bag, and she was going to hit up James Stewart. Well, he sent her away. But once he covered for James, now James is obligated to fall in line. And that's the key, guys. They want them to fall in line and do whatever is asked of them. Speaking of IV bags, why the hell aren't these guys allowed to use IV bags? Everyone should be able to use IV bags. All the top guys do. Why do you think they go in their motorhomes? Because the AMA will not go in the motorhomes to look, nor do they care. They let these top guys use IV bags on hot summer days when it's incredibly beneficial. Josh Lichtel is a privateer who lost his life due to heat-related. Some people say he drank too much water. Some people say he didn't drink enough. But either way, he died because he was trying to race without an IV bag in an incredibly hot day at Redbud. Had he been allowed to IV bag himself after practice, he'd still be alive. So when people say, I don't want performance-enhancing drugs because of danger, well, let me just point out Josh Lichtel. If they allowed this and stopped, pretending to cover up these things and using them as things that could destroy riders if they get out of line, if they had just said, hey, you know what, guys, it's hot. Go ahead and use IVs. It's fine. Does that change the end result of the races? I don't think it does. I really don't. Because the guys at the top level are doing it anyway. All you're doing is allowing guys like Josh Lichtel and people who are still at risk trying to compete on that level the same playing field, because they don't have a motorhome and they have to do it in places where you might be able to see it. So that's my opinion on performance enhancing drugs in the sport. I think if people came out and said, hey, yeah, top pros use these, youth should not use them, I honestly think people would listen if top riders said, yeah, I got my supplement package, it works great, but I would not use it as a child. The thing is when it's black market, people don't know and people want to cheat. And these crazy parents, look at the way that Darren Lawrence has treated his kids as a commodity. These parents, and I'm not saying all of them, there's some really great parents out there that do it for the right reasons and for their kids. But there's also some dirtbags out there who just push their kids and then they end up stealing their money or claiming credit for what they've done as they get older. There's so many cases of this. And yeah, you don't think those people who are using their kid as a commodity would put a underage kid on, HGH and some of these things that they could think make them into a breadwinner? You know damn well they would. So while I'm not calling anyone out by name, those of you guys who get your products from the pharmacist, and that's what the name of this pharmacy is called in Florida, you might want to beware. Word is out. They know who you are. I don't know what you would do, but you might want to try and find a different supplier. All right, guys, so we gave away the helmet. B&R Bob, you won the Cooper Webb Red Bull helmet. Shoot me your information, and I'll get that out to you. And congratulations, and thank you to